Hello, I'm Gerard Charles, and as the Artistic Director of the Royal Academy of Dance, it is my pleasure to host this discussion. We know that good bone health is important to a healthy and active life, and so it is a great pleasure to have the chance to talk today to experts in the field to discuss this important subject and learn more about this and how we can help support ourselves and others. I would like to begin by inviting our guests to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit more about their area of expertise. Perhaps if I start with Sarah.
Oh, hello, I'm Sarah Leyland. I'm an osteoporosis specialist nurse, and I work with the Royal Osteoporosis Society as a clinical advisor.
And Nicky?
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Nicky Keay, and I should add, I'm a passionate dancer myself. I've been dancing all my life, so I love dancing, and therefore I'm very fortunate that I've got my dream job. I'm the medical advisor to Scottish Ballet, and I also work with a lot of other dancers and athletes.
Excellent. And Martin.
Hi, everybody. I'm Martin Lanfear. I'm the head of performance medicine at Scottish Ballet. I'm a physiotherapist by trade, but my main role is overseeing a multidisciplinary team at Scottish Ballet.
Excellent. Well, a great panel to have to talk about osteoporosis, bone health in general, and dance. So many of us are probably familiar with the term osteoporosis and hopefully know that bone health is important for professional and amateur dancers. But what is often not known or properly recognized is that dancers of all ages and levels can be at risk of broken bones and osteoporosis. Can I ask Sarah, perhaps to start, to remind us what osteoporosis is?
Yes, thank you, Gerard. So osteoporosis is a medical condition. When bones lose their strength, they become weaker and they break more easily. And it's these broken bones or fractures that can obviously lead to pain and sometimes to disability. So that's really osteoporosis, and perhaps worth saying that our bones are like living organs, constantly changing and renewing themselves, and that's a normal process, and it's usually in balance and bones stay strong. But sometimes things get a bit out of balance, we lose more bone than we gain, and this leads to this weakness to osteoporosis. So that's basically what osteoporosis is.
Okay, so you've touched a little on what the causes can be. Are there any other particular reasons that people can develop osteoporosis?
Yes, well, it's partly the result of getting older. So unfortunately, in older age, this imbalance often occurs, and that's why osteoporosis and these broken bones are more likely when we're old. And it's partly about our genes. So there are some things that we can't do anything about, but there are lifestyle aspects to it. There are many other things like medical conditions and medications, but certainly in terms of what we're talking about today, we're thinking about lifestyle. And we do know that you need to look after your bones. So it's about eating well and healthily, not having excessive alcohol, not smoking, getting enough vitamin D, and of course, exercising, adequate and appropriate exercise.
So as you say, exercise is one of the things that is and physical activity is very good for bone health. And obviously as dancers, we do exercise quite a lot. However, dancers still incur osteoporosis and other bone challenges. Can you talk a little bit about how that may occur more often?
Yes, well, as you say, exercise is great for bones generally and helps to maintain bone health. But what's not always known, and it's a bit confusing here, is that if we do too much exercise, so it's over-exercise, without getting enough calorific intake, so to balance the amount of exercise that we're doing, then that can lead to problems such as low body weight, may be coupled with other things like eating disorders. And in the end, we can get problems. We can get low sex hormones, and this can lead to weaker bones. And really, that's where the problem starts. And we know, as you've suggested, that this can affect athletes, particularly elite athletes, and unfortunately, occasionally, it can affect dancers.
Nicky, maybe I could turn to you now. Even though osteoporosis is something we associate with older people, there are many contributing factors, I suspect, that we should be aware of in younger people, and specifically in regards to dancers.
So as Sarah says, it's this paradoxical effect of exercise on bone health that can appear confusing. We're told and encouraged to move more, to strengthen our bones, and that absolutely, that's correct. But for a dancer who's already moving a lot, doing a lot of classes, a lot of rehearsals, maybe a lot of performances, often it's not really that they're not moving enough. It might be that Sarah says there's an imbalance. They're doing so much exercise, so much loading of the skeleton, that they either intentionally or unintentionally aren't providing enough energy to cover that demand from movement. And the thing that suffers is that the body recognizes it doesn't have enough energy, and so it will look for ways to save energy, go into eco mode, as I describe it. Sarah's mentioned lower sex steroid hormones, estrogen in women, testosterone in men. And by the way, this is one of the key hormones for bone health. Together with other factors, like Sarah said, dancers tend to be exercising inside without sunlight and with low vitamin D. So literally the bones might sort of starve and they're living, regenerating. As Sarah also says, very important, they're not static. They move, they change. And so if over a period of time there isn't enough energy in the system, the bones sadly will become weaker. And this leads to problems in terms of potentially injuries, fractures.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us what the signs are? How would a dancer or their teacher recognize that perhaps a dancer is in danger of developing these conditions? And also, how frequently does this occur in dancers of all ages?
Well, I think it's really so important to spot the potential problem early, because it makes me very sad every single time I see a dancer hobble in having developed a stress fracture, i.e. This imbalance of nutrition and energy output through the training, because I wish that I could have detected that earlier, the warning signs. And so this is actually where teachers play a vital role. If the teacher notices that one of their dancers, or the dancer herself or himself, by the way, it happens in men as well, male dancers as well, at first there might not be an obvious sign. Actually, the dancer might feel fine, but gradually they might start to feel a bit more fatigued than normal. They might actually not feel as coordinated. I mean, you have to be super coordinated to be a dancer, don't you? And we all have bad days in the studio, don't we? When you just can't find your balance. But if there are more, sort of technique errors, if I can put it that way, or you just can't remember the steps so well, these are signs that your body hasn't got enough energy in the system. Mm-hmm. So these are the early signs. You might have disturbed sleep. You just don't feel quite right, and you don't feel you're dancing at your best. Something, you can't put your finger on it, but something isn't right. It might be more obvious that as a dancer, I've been there, by the way, that you are intentionally restricting what you eat because you think you will fit into that tutu if you're slimmer, and you might get picked for the part. We have to acknowledge and accept dance is aesthetic, artistry is involved. And so, yes, there can be perceived often a pressure by the dancer that they've got to conform to looking this certain way. So it's kind of a case of the dancer, you have to sort of be honest with yourself, but this is where the teachers also come in. If the teachers notice that a student or a dancer hasn't got that spark or that energy, something isn't right for that dancer, they might be getting lots of just niggly injuries, not yet the bone stress injury, but just niggly injury. These are all warning signs. How common, just to finish off on that last part of your question, how common is this? Unfortunately, I have to report pretty common. We did a survey of international dancers from all over the world, men and women, asking about these warning signs about energy levels, sleep patterns, how do you feel about food and your shape, things like this. And nearly half of the female dancers were showing signs, not yet osteoporosis, thank goodness, and fractures, but warning signs that there might be early indicators that something wasn't quite right. We didn't have so many men in the survey, but nevertheless, there was, a significant percentage of them that also were displaying signs. And if these signs could be picked up early, either by the dancers themselves, by their fellow dancers, or importantly, I think the teachers, this is where it's really crucial, then hopefully we can reduce, these potential problems for dancers.
I know that being healthy is actually one of the most important things. I know that it's easy as a dancer to get distracted by aesthetics and that all these sort of the superficial parts of dancing. But ultimately, I think our goal at the RAD is to make sure that all our dancers are healthy, because without your health, you're not going to be able to perform as well as you would like to. So I think, that's very much a clear message we would like to make sure everyone hears. But, so if a teacher or a dancer is afraid that they're showing symptoms of needing some help, what would be your advice as to what they should do next?
Well, there is, of course, the information on the Royal Osteoporosis website. Also, BASEM, the British Association of Sports and Exercise Medicine. With colleagues, we've written a website specifically looking at this issue. We're talking about REDS, relative energy deficiency in sport. Martin and I, together with other colleagues from other dance companies, we are trying to, the word sport does jar a little bit, I have to be honest, and actually we should really call it RED-D, relative energy deficiency in dance as well. Anyway, so there is a website there that dancers and teachers can refer to, and it's written by me, a doctor, and other colleagues, so it's really good information. And it's just an information website, education if you want, because sometimes it is a delicate issue. As you quite rightly said, it can have, number one, a stigma, or, the dancer can believe that they're doing the right thing. It's actually a tricky thing to address. And so going to a website which is objective, clear information, that could actually be a good starting point to go and have a look and to get yourself, the teacher and the student, the dancer, familiar with what this condition is, and feel more comfortable that actually this is something, that needs to be recognized and something needs to be done about it before you get the injury. Mm-hmm. And just one other comment, the name of the website is Health for Performance, number 4, performance.co.uk, which actually, I just want to make that point you made about being healthy. A lot of dancers, and I have to admit, myself in my younger years, and many athletes, they think performance. Mm-hmm. But fundamental to getting anywhere near your potential as a dancer is your health. Your health is your most important tool. That's why we called it Health for Performance, by the way. So I thought that was a really important point that you made, just to emphasize that dancers, we're not trying to take away, we're not trying to repress you as a dancer. We're trying to help you and say that you need to be really healthy to be a decent dancer. That's fundamental to whatever your, whatever your aspirations are. Whether you want to be a professional, like me, you want to continue it at a high amateur level, or, whatever it is, being healthy is so important.
Very good. Martin, can you tell us a little about the work you're doing with Scottish Ballet, about how you support dancers when they have a problem with over-exercise and the problems it can cause?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned in the intro, I'm very lucky to be part of a multidisciplinary team. And I think that's the first thing I'd say is this is a collaborative effort between physios, strength and conditioning coaches, doctors, dietitians, and most importantly, probably the artistic staff. So, a professional company, the teachers and the leaders, because they set the tone, they set the culture, and they set the workload. So that's the first thing. That's what we do. And there's been a bit of a theme when I've listened to Sarah and Nicky talk. It's about education, and that's the big push that we've made over the last sort of 4 years. The beautiful thing about education is it doesn't really cost very much to do. There's no sort of fancy investment that you need apart from your time and your will and your energy. So we spent a long time educating the key stakeholders. So that's first and foremost my team, making sure my team are up to date, well briefed. Nicky obviously has a lot of say and a lot of input there, but also make sure the dancers understand what over-exercising is, what it looks like, and what the impact is. And they get it. They're an intelligent bunch. They care about their bodies. That's what dancers do. They care about these things, and they want to perform, and they want to be on stage, and they want to be available. but also delivering a lot of education and consistent education in really accessible formats to the artistic staff to explain this is what REDS or Red D or overexercising or underfueling looks like. This is how it happens. And these are the simple environmental and cultural changes that we can make as a team, as a big team, to try and reduce as best we can the risk to the dancers. So a lot of education, little by little, and with a lot of consistency and patience.
I know one of the challenges I had when I was an artistic director was not so much making sure the dancers got on stage, but it was trying to stop them being on stage when they did have an injury, because they knew that was their moment and they wanted to do that. So what advice do you have to teachers or people who are working with the dancers to help them adjust to the reality that perhaps this is not the best thing for you to do, to go out there and overstress yourself?
I think that's a really astute question. And this is my experience of this is, I think dancers, in my experience, don't want to admit injury or report injury because they don't want to miss out, right? And they don't want to be, there's this perception of punishment, if it will be held against me. And as artistic directors and leaders and teachers can willingly say, look, it won't be held against you, but I think we need to act on that. So if a dancer does come off and is injured, there is no casting repercussions. There is, it is done very transparently. So I think this is going to take time, because there's a big cultural change here. There's a big trust change here that needs to happen. And I think it's down to the teachers and the leaders to demonstrate to the dancers that that behavior is a good thing. Proactively reporting injury, taking ownership, engaging in the process is not just okay, it's a good thing. And I think that, again, as I said before, I think we're talking about years here of repeating the behavior, rewarding the behavior of reporting injuries and taking ownership of health. So I think that would be my advice to teachers is set the tone and be very transparent and create a positive environment when it comes to injury in terms of caring for your dancers as individuals.
I think, again, from a professional experience, but it does reflect back onto the training period. There was a very proficient dancer that I worked with who had a very successful career, but they were later in their career, they were starting to show signs of osteoporosis, and it wasn't because of anything they'd done right then. It came from their early nutrition and the way they had been when they were younger. So I think, one of the things that obviously some of these things manifest themselves later on in lives, but my question for both of you is probably, what can we do to make sure that younger dancers who probably aren't even aware that this is an issue are taking care of it now, not waiting until they're older?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? I work quite a lot with sort of younger dancers as well, and the older I get, my view on life changes as well. But I don't think we want to scare them. I think that's probably the wrong way. You don't want to say, look, this is what you could end up like. I don't think that's the right thing to do. Although it might be easier and bit satisfaction for myself, and sort of just cracking the whip. But I think again, I probably sound like a broken record, but I think it does come down to education and explanation of what we do in the early parts of our growth and maturation, particularly young dancers. I'm talking sub 18 years old, young dancers will have an effect, both positive and negatively. So if we adopt good habits and good lifestyle choices, as Sarah said, not smoking, moderate alcohol intake, balanced, varied diet, these are things that will enhance our longevity. So I think it would be a very trying to have a narrative that's very positive and trying to avoid that fear mongering that I know we sometimes can be tempted into doing.
Yeah, I would really agree with you there, Martin. And that's the approach I always have with my dancers and my athletes. It's like, you have got potential, you're doing very well, but imagine what you could achieve if you were in your healthiest. And also, I think Martin makes such an important point, those formative years in terms of behaviors. We're talking about behaviors, that it's not okay to skip meals. You should have regular meals. You should have a rest day, being positive. You should, get into good habits at a young age. And from a bone health point of view, I know Sarah will probably want to say something about this, peak bone mass. So you get when you're growing, you're also strengthening your bones during those crucial teenage years. And so you want to be at the best you can be, you know, set you in good stead for older life, for, you know, later life, but which actually is the professional career of a dancer, which goes back to what you said, Gerard, that actually we did a study indeed of retired dancers who did have poor bone health because of what had happened more actually as the training dancer in the teenage years. So these are really, really important years, but absolutely, we know what teenagers are like. Listen, my two sons are grown up now, but, you know, you have to, you know, saying, oh, you shouldn't do this and whatever, it isn't, they won't listen. And fair enough, nor would I, nor did I even. You know, you have to put it in a positive light that if you want to really get where you want to get and get to your maximum potential, this is the time to put in the hard work, get those good habits formed, get those strong bones under your belt, get that done. So it doesn't have to be complicated, you know, detailed medical stuff. Indeed, I've made some courses for these young dancers in terms they can understand, you know, that, like Martin said, give them the practical tools and the understanding of what they need to do. And that's going to, I think, really help. And that's, again, where, you know, teachers can really help, you know, especially with the younger dancers doing their RAD exams. You know, even at that young age, that's when the teachers can encourage those good habits and make sure their pupils are coming along and, you know, are in good health as far as they can see, and maybe, you know, just sort of highlight if there's anything that they're concerned about at that young age. I think that's, yeah, these are the future dancers, aren't they? So we need to nurture them.
Mm-hmm. Sarah, is there anything you'd like to add about, you know, age? I mean, obviously at different ages, we all grow and mature at different rates, but is there sort of a general area that you could sort of suggest that people should be really aware of these foundational building blocks of the bone health that you should be aware of?
Yes, I think it's just really important to think of bone health as a lifelong journey, as it were. So yes, there are crucial times, as you said, Nicky, you know, in our adolescent years when we really want to build our bones to reach that kind of best ever, hopefully, late 20s. But yeah, I think it's about looking after your bones throughout your life, which sort of sounds obvious, but it's never too late. And well, it could be, but I mean, the fact is there's always something you can do. And I think the other good news is that really all these things we're talking about, which are good for bones, are also good for heart and cancer risk. So see it as a positive health action. And I mean, I just want to say thank you too to the Royal Academy for actually raising awareness about it, because there must be something. I mean, I'm not a dancer, so I haven't been there, but I think making it okay, exactly as you were saying, Martin, and making sure that it's okay for the teachers, the culture is such that it's okay to feel like that, because I do imagine you might know what's going on for you, but just not feel it's okay to tell anyone or and to have to hold on to that. So it's brilliant, I think, to just bring it out into the open and be talking about the positive things. Yeah,
I think the relationship between student and teacher is a very important one, because a lot of times our younger students will confide more in their ballet teacher than they would in their parents or their school setting and everything like that. And so I think it's very important for our teachers to really understand they do carry a lot of responsibility, but it's very important for them to understand how much they can support a student when it's the right time to pull back a little bit as well. And I think one of the challenges also that our teachers will face is the balance between not wanting to be too easy on them so they don't achieve the technical goals they're trying to reach, but also not overexerting them so that they demand more of them than they're physically capable of. And I just wondered if you have any thoughts about the correct balance there.
Well, I think, as you say, teachers have a lot of responsibility, and if they've had an excellent training, as I know you deliver at the RAD, by the way, I used to be a student there. I used to come to the open classes anyway, so I love the RAD. Anyway, I know that the rigorous training of the teachers there, you know, and it's international, etc. So the teachers are hopefully well equipped, you know, to take all this into account, and they do have a responsibility. But I think, and as you say, they're often whom the dancer might turn to, you know, because of that trust, relationship, respect. But equally, the teacher if the teacher feels uncomfortable, that it's out of their area of expertise, if they get the feeling that actually this needs to be seen by a doctor, if a female student says my periods have stopped or something like this, then of course a teacher will know where her limit comes in terms of what advice she can give. But at least if she can signpost, he or she can signpost the student to the appropriate resources, like I mentioned, the BASEM website or something like this, or the ROS, indeed, Royal Osteoporosis Society website, at least then they know where to signpost the student to if actually they feel it's out of their remit. With regard to the fine balance of the teacher, well, yes, that's why I'm not a teacher, because it's very tricky, isn't it? You want to encourage the student to reach their full potential, but equally you don't want to push them too hard. But I think certainly in sport, we say that enjoyment and really getting a secure technique is the most important part of any dance or indeed sporting activity. You want to get those you want to get the enjoyment. Simple as that. I remember the RAD exams. My favorite bit of the exam was that bit, musical improvisation. I don't know if you still have that. They would play a music of some, you don't know what was going to come. It could be an allegro, adagio, whatever. And you had to interpret and dance as you want. That was what I really liked. So enjoyment is so important. And of course, you want to make sure the technique is safe, and the dancer understands the basics, the turnout and all this sort of thing. But again, I think that's also going to be the teacher's experience, when to push a little bit and when actually not. Because you want this dancer to continue enjoying and loving dance and not being injured. So if the teacher notices that this student simply doesn't have the facility for that degree of turnout, they haven't got the Russian flat turnout, then don't push it because they get injured. So I think, again, it's down to the training and experience of the teacher to know, like you say, when to push a bit more and when actually to pull back. But remembering that dance is fantastic and amazing and brings such a level of enjoyment, and that's really what should be the most important. That's my opinion anyway.
I think that all of us involved with dance do absolutely get enjoyment out of it, and that really is what we should all be striving for. And this conversation this afternoon has also been very enjoyable and very informative, and I thank you all for taking part. Just wondered, if there's any final thoughts any of you would like to share before we wrap this up?
I'd just like to have a quick question, actually. The wonderful work that's going on at Scottish Ballet, and as not knowing the field, is that a common setup? I was wondering if most companies do have the kind of understanding and awareness around this issue. It's great to hear that work's going on.
We're definitely the best, aren't we, Martin? Not biased in any way.
You edit that out, I expect.
No. Go on, Martin. It was a slide. Go on. All yours.
I think we're very lucky at Scottish Ballet to have the funding and the resources and the support from our executive team and our board to invest in this area of performance medicine. The other big companies in the UK, ballet companies, they're equally lucky to have this this ability to do this. But I'm acutely aware, because I do a lot of work in the field of performing arts out with the professional sector, that not everybody is as lucky. And I think this a lot of what I try and do, and Nicky's on board as well, is try and do some access and some outreach stuff to make sure that our information and the privilege that we have is shared and disseminated. So in short, the companies that have the resources, very similar setups, multidisciplinary teams akin to sports medicine, dance medicine, and the schools are similar-ish. But there's also a huge part of our population that are freelance, vocational, and maybe don't quite have the access that dance at the top do. So it's really important that we spend time and share our knowledge with the wider community.
Thank you so much. And it's exciting to hear about the work you're doing at Scottish Ballet. I mean, that really is, it is unusual, I would say. I think that the challenge is that a lot of young people particularly I would say there's mature dancers who are just as immature mentally, because they are seeing images of ideals, and we know this is in pop culture all over the place, where they think they need to look like this or be like this to be successful. And sometimes some of the best dancers I've worked with, I like them because they are a little different. They are themselves, but they don't think that themselves. And they've got this image of that what they should be like. And whether it's to do with nutrition or lifestyles or whatever, they really, it's what they're seeing, I think, in popular media, that is, you know, they'll go on TikTok and they'll see someone doing something freaky and they go, well, I'm not good unless I can do that.
In our study of, you know, looking at the dancers worldwide, that was actually pretty concerning, that the social media, the negative effect of social media, I know there are some positives, connecting people, etc., but actually the number of dancers who said that they were affected by what they saw on social media and felt pressured that they had to be perfect and look this way, eat this way, something like this, when often, frankly, it's not the truth in any case. So that's really concerning. And the psychology, how you think as a dancer, if you're concerned, you think you're not right or you're not good enough shape or weight, how you think actually affects your hormones, which is absolutely incredible, which therefore will ultimately lead through to bone health. So I think that's also something as dancers should be celebrated for their individuality. We don't want to just, as an audience, frankly, we don't want to see a lot of clones on the stage, do we? We want to see individual dancers and we want to see something different. I remember, Martin, when you first introduced me to the, at Scottish Ballet, your artistic director, that I asked him, I was just curious. I said, what do you look for? What do you think makes a successful dancer, or something along those lines? He said to me, he said, flexibility of mind, willingness to take on board the roles, have the courage to, take this on. And actually, therefore, he didn't say this, but indirectly, I interpreted that as not being a clone. And show it, being proud of your individuality, whatever that is. So I think that's a really interesting point, which probably would sprout a whole PhD. I don't know.
Yeah, I think to add a bit to that as well, it's kind of what I was mentioning earlier about the people that have the power, the casting directors, the rehearsal directors, the artist directors, the leaders in this field. If we keep casting all our swans at the same height, same size, same color, we're not going to go anywhere. We have to be prepared, and audiences have to move with us as well. All right, to be comfortable with this flexibility, with different shapes, sizes, colors, types of dancers on stage. And I think that will help dancers see that there is diversity and place for all of us. But as I said, that takes the dancers to change their mindset, the leaders to change their mindset, but I also think it takes the audience to change their mindset as well, to get used to that sort of difference there. But I think it's just sort of building on what Nicky said and just having a bit of insight into, I know how casting works in our company, and I can, behind closed doors, it is as transparent and diverse as it is in public as well. It's who's the best person for that role, regardless of size, shape, whatever.
And
yes,
I think
because it's got to have the personality of the dancer in it. And I mean, I think the only time when it's fair enough for the audience to expect, not clones, very similar dancers, is that bit in Bayadere when he is meant to be seeing the image of one person. So that's fair enough. You could justify that those do need to look similar. But otherwise, I can't think of any other situation where, it makes no sense. That's not what the world is like. People are different. And actually, I think hopefully the audience, actually, they do kind of realize that. I think you want to see something, you want to see individual talents and traits. And as you say, the dancer who is best suited for that role, not just technical wise, but character wise and personality and everything. Right. It makes absolute sense, doesn't it? Sorry, Gerard, I interrupted.
That's okay. No, I just think that when I go to see a performance, the performances that really I enjoy watching are the ones where I actually do see different people and I can recognize who's on stage, and they're not like, which one of them was it that just went by? You can see the real person, and you can see how they interact with each other, and that to me makes good ballet performance. Our teachers are probably at completely the opposite end of this whole spectrum, in that they have dance schools where they have every single type of child and body. We're in 86 different countries around the world. We have a huge diversity of who takes our classes. And sometimes some of the challenges are to, how do we adjust for all those different realities? But we want all our students to have a great experience. We want them to have a healthy experience with dance, and we want them to enjoy it, whether they become a professional dancer or not. So many of the world's stars started their careers with the RAD, but many, many more are very successful doctors like yourself, Nicky, or professionals, or they're just good people in the world. And I think that's one of my messages about dance, is it can help you be a better person, and it doesn't mean that you have to be someone else's ideal of a good person. It's you. And the whole idea of being an expressive artist is to express yourself, not to pretend to be someone else.
Amazing. Inspirational. That's exactly it about dancing. For me, I know this sounds very personal, but as an example, as a child, I did all the RAD's exams. I really enjoyed it. Part of me did want to be Margot Fonteyn, but I knew that actually probably that wasn't for me. But all those years I spent doing ballet and continue to do, that made me think about, actually it's really important to express yourself as an individual and do what you want to do. I'm a female doctor, by the way, so actually that, and I'm very old now, so when I started, it wasn't, one had to be quite strong, shall we say. But I'd got that confidence to a certain extent from my dancing, and then I continue to dance, continue to enjoy it, still doing classes with 2 hip replacements. So I think that's such an important message. Dance, we think immediately professionals, but actually it can, it's so much more than that. It's for the youngsters, and being taught, really well by teachers that have been trained really well. Like you said, the RAD worldwide, the teachers having being with the challenge, but able to meet the challenge of teaching the children of all shapes, sizes, wherever, all over the world, to spread that joy of dance. I mean, that's just incredible.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to thank you all for participating in this conversation that I trust has helped both students and teachers who are listening in to be aware of these conditions, and also to know how to address them and to live positively with this fabulous dance form that we all enjoy being part of. If anyone would like to learn more, please do follow the links that will be provided as part of this conversation. And thank you all so much for joining us.